Korea was divided into two countries in 1945 after World War II. As Japan, as the previous owner of Korea, was defeated by America and had to hand over Korea to the Allies as part of the peace treaty, the Korean lands were to be ordered and structured to allow for a single government to bring prosperity back to the country. Yet the USA was also suffering a shortage of supplies and lack of available resources to spend in Korea at the time. This resulted in the USA giving the North to USSR so as to better allow management and help speed up the recovery of Korea. However, this split the country into two separate entities as the North became communist with a singular party, while the South became capitalistic and democratic. In turn, these two different foundations for each country represented their country sponsors, USA for the South and the USSR for the North. This is why the ideologies helped to create the Korean War, as both wished to unite Korea into an image of their own, with the South wishing to found a democratic and capitalistic country, and the North wishing to found a communistic and singular party country. Communist versus capitalist views. The Korean War, which is essentially a war fought between the communist and capitalist worlds, which occurred between 1950 and 1953 in Korea. The war itself was a massive leap forward in the Cold War, as the first time USSR and US forces would engage indirectly over a field of battle. The war fought on the side of Korea versus the South was for its independence, and defence was fought by Western forces comprised of US, Australian and various UN forces. The military operations in Korea and the Allied side were mainly composed and directed by General Douglas MacArthur, who was the previous US military leader of the Japanese offence in World War II and a supporter of the aviators. However, MacArthur would later be charged with insubordination in replacement of Matthew Ridgway, who led Allies in the remainder of the Korean War. This was essentially because MacArthur disagreed with President Truman's opinion on the Korean War. While Truman wanted to end the war and have peace talks, MacArthur believed that if they pushed hard enough and with enough force and tactics, they'd be able to take North Korea and unite it under a democratic and singular country. This ultimately Truman did not agree and thought it was a threat to his authority, so charged him with insubordination and had him kicked out. North Korea, however, who wished to place the South under a communistic government with a singular party, who has a single leader, was mainly fought by North Korean forces as support for the USSR. People's Volunteer Army for China arrived later to support the North Korean military defense and assault against the South. The leaders of all three representatives for North Korea were Park Han-yong for the North Korea, Peng Juai for China, and Nikita Khrushchev, who was later involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 with the USSR. Impact of the war. The impact of the Korean War was quite interesting and essentially a vital point of development of the Cold War for both the USSR and the USA. The three main points are taken into consideration when examining this war. The first point is that neither side had directly nor indirectly fought each other, meaning this would be the first time both major parties of the Cold War had fought against one another without direct conflict. Second point is that a war, communistic and capitalistic beliefs was what this was fought for, as the South and North wished to unite the whole of Korea into their own type of governmental rule and systems. The Southern forces led by Douglas MacArthur tried, once the South was secured, to push into the North to try and create a singular egalitarian country. However, North Korea, when they invaded South Korea, wished to integrate the South into Northern communistic governmental sphere. The final point is in 1910, when Japan was about to invade Korea, they requested a deal with the Tsar Russia. Then the 38th parallel line, Korea would become invaded and divided. The North would be given to Russia, while the South would be delivered to Japanese control to avoid war between the two nations at the time. How the media was used to influence the public. The event in the media for both sides was presented differently in a vast degree, which would affect the public opinion as well. The media on the South side, for instance, portrayed it as a war of defence against the North, who invaded the South, while communist intentions alongside violent aggression as described by the UN representatives in US media. The North, however, described it as a war to topple capitalistic ways and defeat the South alongside the USA, that was fighting off the ways of the Americans in the free world. Public opinion, however, due to propaganda and the southern side, was that the North was attempting to spread communism and try to remove democracy from the free world. Public opinion was a mirrored version of the South, for the northern side believed that the Americans of the free world were attempting to remove communism. However, these public differences in the role of ideologies for most countries in general who were involved in either side were important, because these two factors helped ensure that both nations would try to attack each other, also helped to contribute to creating the Korean War. Challenges faced by Allies. However, the challenges faced by Allies for the South, including Generals Douglas MacArthur, Ridgway and President Truman, were 1. Gaining support for the counterattack in the beginning, 2. Raising troops to support the counterattack for duration, 3. Gathering enough supplies to allow for the supply of frontline warfare. Finally, the lifestyle for most people in the world at the time was one of hardships, as the world was still in recession after World War II due to the fact that most countries had spent large amounts of resources and manpower to try and win the war. Finally, the outcome of this war was an armistice signed by the UN, US forces and the South Korea for the South, while China, North Korea and USSR signed for the North. South Korean officials were also absent for the sign of the armistice. The war was essentially a stalemate and resulted in neither side gaining control or pushing forward their agendas. Overall, nothing was gained in this war to a similar war which occurred 29 years ago, hence World War I. The outcome was this. On the south, a total of 178,426 dead, 32,925 missing, and wounded 566,433,000 missing and wounded counted as well. Total dead of 367,283 to 750,282,000 dead on the North Korean side, and a total wounded of 686,500 to 789,000 on the northern side. Thus, the northern side had far more dead and wounded than the south. Thanks for listening.